In a small Nigerian village called Ihiola, surrounded by dense forest, lived a woman named Ego. She was a hard-working farmer, known for her strength and determination. Every day, she woke before dawn, toiled in the fields, and prepared meals for her only son, Efi. They were poor, but Ego was proud of their simple life. One evening, after a long day of work, Ego sat by the fire, stirring a pot of soup. Efi, her son, sat nearby, quietly playing with a small wooden toy. The fire crackled, sending dancing shadows across their tiny home. Then, an old man appeared at the door. His clothes were tattered, and his eyes gleamed with an unnatural brightness. "Good evening, woman," the old man greeted, his voice raspy. Ego nodded, surprised by the stranger's sudden appearance. "Good evening. How may I help you?" the man chuckled softly. "I come with an offer. I can give you all the wealth you desire. But, you must pay a price." Ego stared at him, unsure of what to make of his words. "What price?" The man's eyes narrowed. "A sacrifice. A small one. Your son, Efi, is all I ask. He will be made into something more than just a boy. He will become the key to your wealth." Ego's heart raced. "My son? What do you mean?" The old man's smile was cold, but his words were sweet. "The power of the earth is vast. I can give you the riches of the world, but only if you trust me. All I need is a simple gesture. A small act of devotion. You will never need to worry about hunger again." Ego's mind spun. Could she really do this? She loved Efi more than anything in the world, but the thought of wealth, of a life without struggle, tempted her deeply. Her hands trembled as she thought of the possibilities. "Think about it," the old man said, his voice soft like a whisper. "The choice is yours. The offer will only be here for one night." With that, he turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Ego alone with her thoughts. The night was long. Ego couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind trapped between the love she had for her son and the promise of riches. The image of the old man's eyes, gleaming with power, haunted her. Efi slept soundly beside her, unaware of the dark thoughts swelling in his mother's heart. His innocent face, so trusting, so full of life, made Ego's heart ache. How could she even think of betraying him? But the thought of a life without hardship kept pulling at her. She remembered the days of hunger, the nights when she couldn't even afford to buy him new clothes. The pain of watching her son grow up with nothing. In the silence of the night, Ego finally made up her mind. She would do it. She would accept the old man's offer. The thought of a better life for her son and herself was too tempting. After all, he would only be taken for a short time, right? The sacrifice would be small, and then they would have everything they had ever dreamed of. At dawn, Ego took Efi's hand and led him outside to the fields. The old man's words echoed in her mind. A small sacrifice. When they reached the center of the field, the air felt heavy. Ego knelt before her son, holding his face in her trembling hands. She looked into his innocent eyes, and for the first time, she felt a sense of dread deep in her bones. "Efi, my dear son," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I love you more than anything in this world. But today, we must do something that will change everything. You will be the one to make our dreams come true." Efi smiled, trusting her completely. "I'll do anything, Mama." Without another word, Ego took a deep breath. She remembered the old man's instructions and began to pound the pestle into the mortar, just as she had done 1,000 times before. But this time, the act was different. This time, she would pound with a terrible intent. As the pestle struck the mortar again and again, the sound of the pounding filled the air. It was the sound of life being crushed, of dreams being forged in the most horrific way. Efi began to scream, his voice high with terror. He didn't understand what was happening. He reached out to his mother, his small hands gripping her arm. "Mama, stop. Please," he cried, but Ego's hands did not falter. The power of greed had taken hold of her, and she no longer saw her son. She only saw the money, the wealth, the life she had always dreamed of. The pounding continued, and Effie's screams grew weaker. His body, once full of life, began to still. When it was over, Ego stood frozen, her hands covered in blood. The mother was silent now. The pain in her heart was suffocating. She had done the unthinkable. She had sacrificed her son, but nothing happened. No riches, no fortune, no treasure appeared. The air was still and quiet, as if mocking her. Hours passed, and the old man never came. Ego waited, but he never returned. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized the truth. She had been deceived. There was no wealth waiting for her. There was only loss. Ego fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "What have I done?" she whispered, her voice breaking. The fields around her seemed to close in, the earth itself turning cold. She had sacrificed her son for nothing. The price she had paid was far higher than she could ever have imagined. Days passed, and the village began to whisper about the woman who had killed her own son. People came to her house, but Ego did not answer. She could not bear to face them. Her mind was lost in the horror of her actions. Then, one night, as she sat alone in her home, a shadow appeared at the door. The old man stood before her, his eyes cold and empty. "You took the money the wrong way," he said softly. "And now, you must pay." Ego's heart stopped. She had been warned, but she had ignored it. "You will live with your mistake forever," the old man continued. "Your wealth will be your guilt. Your life will be your punishment." And with that, the old man vanished, leaving Ego alone with her remorse. Years went by, but Ego never found peace. Her life, once filled with the promise of wealth, was now filled with regret. She had lost her son, and there was nothing that could bring him back. She realized, too late, that true wealth was not measured by gold or land. It was measured by love, by the things that money could never buy. And she had sacrificed the only thing that truly mattered. In the end, Ego was left with nothing but the weight of her actions. The wealth she had dreamed of was nothing more than an illusion. She had learned the hard way that the true cost of greed was far too high. The story of Ego teaches us a powerful lesson about the dangers of greed and the consequences of making choices that harm those we love. In her desperate pursuit of wealth, Ego sacrificed the one thing that truly mattered, her son. This tragic decision shows that no amount of money can replace the value of family, love, and trust. True wealth comes from the relationships we build and the love we share, not from the things we can possess. Greed blinds us to what is important, and in the end, it is the love we give and receive that gives our lives true meaning. If you enjoyed this story and the lessons it carries, make sure to subscribe to African Tales Unfold. Here, we bring you more stories that explore rich African cultures, deep lessons, and unforgettable adventures. Don't miss out on more captivating tales from the heart of Africa. Subscribe now and let the stories unfold.